So is the calls from the right, are those calls something that is bad, something that people don't understand? Is it just a right-wing fever dream that Americans are actually watching as one political party devolves into a system in which you can just call for the killing of someone else and purely over politics, not because that person is violent or you're afraid of them, but because you really don't want them to be a part of politics anymore, and therefore someone trying to kill them would be a good thing. What I'm talking about here is the continued calls for President Trump to be assassinated. So whenever I talk about that, I have people who respond to me by saying, "You're just exaggerating. Why are you so hyperbolic?" Well, I'm not hyperbolic, but you know who is? A caller into C-SPAN. He actually called into a national radio program that's also broadcast on television on C-SPAN, which is government owned television. And he really was praising this opportunity to have President Trump killed.
Slidell, Louisiana. Willie, Democrat, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm a very patriotic American. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 68. And I look at myself and think about we were, as a military man, we're supposed to close, kill, capture, destroy the enemy by all means available. And to see we let this man Trump destroy America, and I look at it and say, well, these two people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right. Dan, in Louisville, Kentucky, independent. Good.
So the host there on C-SPAN and these call-in shows, they don't actually make commentary in between. They basically act as moderators, and they give people around the country an opportunity to weigh in on whatever the question is. So he'll ask a question, or he'll have open mic on a specific subject, and then people can call in. What's interesting about it is the wide breadth of Democrats and Republicans who choose to call into C-SPAN and express themselves. Now, for normal radio, when you hear someone advocating for the killing of another person, you immediately debunk that. You stop the call, you dump the caller, and you begin to talk about how those are not things that we advocate for, because some people are living on the very edge, the razor's edge of sanity. And when they hear something like that, they take it as a directive, and they will try to go out and act on those statements. We saw something similar when Justice Brett Kavanaugh had a man drive from California to Washington to actually attempt an assassination upon him. And he was sitting outside Brett Kavanaugh's home in the middle of the night and decided to instead call 911 and turn himself in. And he was armed. So looking at it from that perspective, the questions that we must ask is this how most Democrats feel? And if so, God, please help our country. Now, I want to give you a few more examples, because that won't be enough for those out there who think I'm just cherry picking, and that's one crazy Democrat calling into C-SPAN. What about the news media? How have they treated the assassination attempts, plural, on President Trump? Well, USA Today made zero mention of any assassination attempt on their front page following the second attempt. The Cleveland Plain Dealer made zero mention of the assassination attempt on the 45th president. You can actually search far and wide. There was no mention in the Portland Press Herald. The Chicago Sun-Times did not highlight the actual assassination attempt. They instead focused on cycling safety. You have the Arizona Republic offering a mere 2 sentences at the bottom of their front page about the fact that there was a second attempt on the life of President Trump. The New York Times said that President Trump was unharmed after shots were fired after a shooting at the Florida golf course. Of course, at that time, we weren't sure who fired the shots, but the fact is they needed more than that. We need to be having statements against that. It's not enough to simply report on it. You have to have statements against an assassination attempt, against any elected official, private citizen. It should always be a goal and an aim and an actual impetus on a high society like ours to condemn violence. I could give you more. New York Magazine, Joe Scarborough, Jen Psaki, Jake Tapper, Rachel Maddow, they blamed Trump. Instead of mentioning it or reporting on the story, they blamed the violence on the victim himself. That cannot be the way we live in this country. Coming up, the SAVE Act went down in flames yesterday with prominent Republicans voting against it. We will discuss this and more on the other side of the break. Stay with us.